Daí, Brogochum na área, e comente abaixo quem aqui é fã de Spreadsheet Simulator. Sabe por quê? Porque eu tô jogando agora Star Citizen. E no vídeo de hoje eu vou mostrar aí o replay, né, da apresentação da CitizenCon de 2019, ao qual falou aí sobre o sistema de economia dinâmica que a gente vai ter dentro do game. Inicialmente, essa foi uma apresentação bem maçante, mas depois o resultado final foi simplesmente incrível. Por isso indico fortemente a todos vocês olharem até o final, mesmo que no início pareça bem chato. Então, né, antes da gente continuar, não esqueça de se inscrever e deixar aquele joinha maroto para fortalecer o canal. Beleza? Bora lá? Building a Dynamic Universe. Eu gosto das apresentações com aquele cara ali, que é o Tony Zurovec.
Okay, so hi, I'm Tony Zurovec, and I'm the Director of Persistent Universe for Star Citizen. I'll be doing the lead vocals tonight, and over here on my right, on the keyboard, is Jake Mealy, our economy designer from Austin.
Hi.
And we're going to be showing you something pretty interesting tonight, and I want to make sure to call out our guitar and bass players back in Montreal, Martin.
Provavelmente esse painel aí vai ser eles mostrando como é que funciona aí a construção do universo do game, né? Provavelmente vão mostrar um pouco mais sobre o Sol Edge, talvez o Planet Edge. Chacó perguntando, tá gravando a live? Claro!
People to understand what the benefits of this new technology were going to be. And I'm going to give you a glimpse of it tonight, but you're going to need some background information to truly appreciate it, so bear with me for a bit and you'll see why we consider it a quantum leap. So, as everybody here obviously knows, Star Citizen is a very ambitious project. Our goal is to deliver a variety of incredibly detailed solar systems that behave in logical fashion and that then give you ample freedom to follow your interests, whatever they may be. Thus far, we've been focused entirely on a single system, Stanton, which includes 4 planets, 12 moons, 225 economic nodes, 44 trading outposts, 13 rest stops, and 50 asteroid fields. So yeah, it's really big. The point of this presentation then is to give you a better understanding of how, when the first one's taken so long, we're aiming to kick things into overdrive so that we can deliver new systems much more quickly. This involves, obviously, a lot of different areas: procedural generation of terrain, modular art sets, algorithmic detailing of buildings and interiors, and a lot of other stuff. For the purposes of this talk, though, I'm going to focus on what I call the dynamic content.
Bom, realmente eles vão mostrar como é que os temas são criados.
Dynamic content responds to player and NPC actions in logical fashion. It's systemic. This means that the universe is in constant motion, which makes it a far more interesting place to explore. Most missions should, of course, be dynamic in nature. They should only be offered when there's an actual need for something.
Só que eles vão dar um foco bem no conteúdo que é dinâmico, né?
A criminal that needs to be brought to justice, or someone that needs to lift from one location to another.
É, cara. Ele vai falar sobre demanda.
Sim.
Eles estão querendo criar demanda real no
demanda dinâmica, né? Que tipo, se os jogadores alterarem uma certa parte do universo, que dali vai fazer com que o resto se realinhe.
Incrível.
When demand for something outstrips supply, whether it's iron ore, bullets, or ship repairs, you expect prices to rise. And conversely, when there's an excess of something, you expect that prices will fall. There's more to it, of course. Concepts like marginal demand and price discovery require a fair bit of math. But in the end, it's all about the constant search for equilibrium as production and consumption levels vary.
Procura e demanda vai ser uma coisa muito animal eles colocarem no game, cara.
Muito legal.
So, for example, if a new field of asteroids rich in valuable commodities is discovered, you'd expect to find a lot of NPC miners in the area, but as the resources are gradually depleted, their numbers should start to fall off. Pirates should gravitate toward areas with a lot of value to plunder and recoil as the amount of security.
Ele tá falando daquela parada que eles comentaram também de esgotar, né, recursos
Sim.
naturais.
Então, se eles encontrarem recursos num cinturão de asteroides, vai encher de gente lá e à medida que for esgotando, ele vai sumindo as pessoas, né? Então, tipo, a população do universo vai estar em constante movimento, né?
Inputs can be passed into a mission from either the runtime environment or services to allow for customization. This allows designers to do things like, say, inject the type and quantity of cargo, whether the ship should be damaged.
O pessoal tá pedindo para aumentar o volume, mas eu acho que já deve estar no máximo, né?
Já tá no máximo, cara. É
bem baixo o áudio.
Para mim também tá bem baixo.
Missions can also have thematic tags applied. These don't specify physical content, but rather detail the headline story behind the scenario that it is.
Não tem nem como dar um boost aqui, porque já tá no máximo.
Designers can differentiate between a straightforward pirate encounter versus one that includes an ambush. Once these descriptors have been assigned, the missions are injected into a database that other systems can access so that they can be instantiated and customized depending upon the situation. This, however, is where we start to run into some major problems. Designers have to explicitly link missions to various constructs within the game. An NPC mission giver, for example, or a probability volume covering the area around yellow. This is time-consuming and greatly complicates maintenance. If a content tag, like pirate, is split into subtags like pirate light and pirate heavy so that we can have more control
Vê se aumentou aí, galera.
You have to go to every place you had assigned the original mission category and individually determine which of the new ones should be enabled.
Tentem dar um boost aqui no OBS.
Content is fixed to specific NPCs and locations, so there's
Nada.
no evolution. The universe is completely static. Another major problem is that we don't have sufficient context to properly customize the missions. At a macro level, the game doesn't really understand the concept of a route, much less what miners traversing that route should be carrying, or what condition they should be in, or which direction they should be if if they're empty, heading towards a mine, or full, bringing the results of their efforts back to a refinery. This lack of context means that we can't exploit a mission's ability to have information injected into it for customization, and that means that you see a lot less diversity, despite requiring just as much work. The last problem, and it's a big one, is that there's no NPC regulation of the mission content. Missions are the basic units of work for the economy, and if someone doesn't do what needs to be done, then everything grinds to a halt. In a properly functioning system, NPCs need the ability to step up if players aren't going to, and the risk reward justifies the effort, and do the work themselves. If a commodity can be purchased at one location and sold at another for a dramatic markup, and there isn't enough cost or risk involved in the transport to warrant the differential, NPCs should seize the opportunity and move the material themselves until the price starts to make sense.
Olha, o que ele está falando aqui até agora não é novidade.
Sim.
Ele já fez um quadro desses, né, anteriormente.
Ele tá falando que o conteúdo todo vai ser dinâmico, né? E isso vai criar também um senso de missões dentro do game. Então, se por exemplo o cara precisa de transportar itens de um lugar para o outro, vai ter players e NPCs para isso, e isso vai atrair piratas, que vai atrair escolta. Então, vai criar toda a base econômica do game, né?
É uma coisa quase que orgânica, né? Você tem uma coisa indo atrás da outra, né? Você tem uma área rica em minério, você vai ter muita mineração, logo vai ter pirata interessado em roubar isso, logo vai haver uma demanda por escolta, segurança e por aí vai, né? E ele explica que isso não depende de player, em momento algum.
Sim.
Se a gente não fizer nada, vai acontecer tudo isso baseado puramente em NPC.
Unfortunately, that's where the good news ends. As with missions, economic nodes don't have any real context in terms of supply and demand, and there's no systemic flow of goods throughout the economy. Why does a refinery want ore? Why is an NPC willing to buy some drugs from you? Where does the shop get the goods that it's selling? Right now, the answer to all these questions is the same. We fake it. Economic nodes conjure up their own supply and demand out of thin air. If a node is designated as wanting to purchase a particular item, for example, designers dictate a formula that describes how that inventory will be gradually burned off so that they want more. These products you deliver to a node then, they don't actually go anywhere. There's no real demand. This is impossible to balance because while production and consumption are fixed, the player count isn't. Sometimes 100 players are interacting with an economic node, and sometimes none. And I mention this because behind the scenes, at the economic level, all of the players, despite being on different servers, really are connected to one single system. A real economy is a tangled web of dependencies, and you can't expect logical results when its gears can completely seize up due to the action or inaction of players. What we really need then is NPC regulation.
Entendi a ideia dele, muito legal.
Purchase items when they need them, thus keeping the demand side logical, while stepping in to help with the supply when players don't, and the risk reward.
Como a gente não vai jogar o jogo o tempo inteiro que nem maluco, né? Vai ter momentos onde vai ter muita gente comprando uma coisa, vai ter momentos que não vai ter ninguém comprando. Então a variação vai ser tão grande que isso não funcionaria numa economia normal.
Ah, sim.
Então, para evitar isso, essa problemática, que é o fator player, a gente vai ser diluído pelos NPCs.
Sim,
então
tipo,
novamente, se a gente não fizer nada, a economia continua girando, a economia continua existindo. Então a gente não consegue atrapalhar tanto, né? A gente não consegue criar um
impacto
caos.
Vai ser, não vai ser tão grande, né? Se a gente for diluído, né? Junto com os NPC.
Bem interessante, faz sentido.
Os painéis desses caras sempre foram bastante técnicos, né?
Each of these items can specify its own production or consumption formula, along with a lot of other information, storage space, optimal inventory level, price offsets, and much more. This information can be archetyped, but of course the world's a lot more interesting than every economic node.
Caiu aí pra você?
So there's still a lot of
princípio não.
customization that winds up
Ainda não.
Ah, voltou.
So now let's take a look at the economic nodes around a typical planetary system. And finally, let's take a look at the economic nodes around the entire Stanton solar system. That's a tremendous amount of data to set up and maintain, as we're routinely adding new items and changing prices. And the worst part is that it's all extremely.
O node econômico de Arquicorp é bem maior que os outros lugares, né?
Because those things are attached to formulae that have no understanding of external events. So right now, designers try their best to brute force this stuff, to make it feel like it's a systemic world, even if it's not. If an area is configured to have a lot of pirates, they increase the price offsets and demand for goods at nearby nodes. If the number of pirates is subsequently decreased, or maybe more security is added to the area, then the nodes are updated to reflect that fact. It's a ton of work, and while this sort of hand tweaking does yield something that's vaguely logical, if static, it's definitely not a real solution, and it doesn't even begin to address the major problems. Now we come to the last of the major areas for which I wanted to
boato de uma variante da Kraken.
So, what is a probability volume? A probability volume is an area of space that contains information detailing what you should see as you pass through the area. It's an optimization of sorts in that it allows us to achieve a desired effect, a certain number of pirates in an area, or a particular likelihood of encountering a freighter filled with iron ore, without having to burn a lot of computational horsepower simulating things when there are no players around to see it. This is accomplished via linking mission content tags to probability curves that span all or part of the expanse of the volume. So, for example, you can denote that security ships are commonplace near Port Olisar and gradually fall off over a couple hundred kilometers, whereas it's very rare to see pirates who would prefer to avoid security close to Port Olisar, but more likely to see them as you get farther away. There are quite a few different types of curves. There are quite a few different types of curves.
Eu vou mandar uma parada aqui pro pai, ele provavelmente vai surtar na tua transmissão.
Não,
tá?
eu já vi.
Tá sabendo?
Já vi.
Tevarinho Light Fighter?
Já vi. Yes!
Cara, eu não tô acreditando nisso.
Yes! Eu botei pressão sozinho pra gente fazer essa nave.
Eu não tô acreditando que vai ser um Tevarinho Light Fighter, mano.
Eu botei pressão sozinho pra gente fazer essa nave.
Ai, cara.
This is how combat assist is currently handled, and we'll be adding some other things like NPC refuel and NPC passenger transport in the near future. The reason it's called spoofing is because we only keep a small.
Nova nave Xian, né?
We've got other types of curves. There are
Quer que te passe as paradas pra você ficar vendo, o
Mano.
A galera tá tirando um monte de foto aqui, mandando do evento.
Tá vendo aonde? No...
There are bounty hunter curves which allow us to link to a probability, which allow us to link a probability to your wanted level so that we can increase the encounter frequency when they'd actually be hunting you and otherwise keep them very rare. Let's continue on
realmente
to get a better understanding of how exactly probability
tem uma variante da Kraken chegando.
Here we have an area
Privatier,
space
né?
marked up as having a certain
Vai ser a lojinha.
freighters, security, asteroids, and derelict ships.
Vai ser a versão mais focada em comércio. Eu vou te passando os links. Eu posto aonde, Borgo? Lá no chat ou...
Pô, posta no chat lá pra galera dar uma olhada também.
Animations, vehicle physics, collision detection. Now let's go ahead and introduce a player
Tô postando um a um.
and clear the board.
Vai olhando aí também.
Those pirates and freighters and everything else, they still exist, but only in a probabilistic state. As the player traverses through the volume, we roll the dice on the various curves and force the probabilities to make a choice. Does that content exist at that location or doesn't it? Here, the player gets a hit from the asteroid probability. So the mission databases then query to find missions with the
E
associated
parece que a
contact,
Mole realmente vai ser um veículo. A galera acertou.
And now a bit later, the player trips the freighter probability and then eventually
Argo.
The key point here is that much of the world exists as a superposition of probabilities until a player gets sufficiently close.
As naves Tevarin são legais, né?
At which point we
Bem
instantiate
diferentes.
them and start simulating the full-blown entities. One of the quirks with probability volumes is that they usually
A Mole não é aquela nave de...
Não, é nave. Então
Não,
é
é
outra
uma nave,
coisa.
cara.
É nave.
Você quer da Argo, aquela?
The problem is that the
Aí,
likelihood
ó.
of multiple events happening simultaneously
Então é
is
outra coisa.
meaning that it's very
Isso
unlikely
é tudo ideias ainda. Eu acho que eles têm que escolher qual nave eles vão fazer.
Todas estão na linha, mas não sabe quando vem, né? Tipo isso.
Sei, não foi
Não,
naquele
não, acho
evento
que-
de ter que escolher qual nave que é...
É esse evento lá.
Então você vai xingar muito, porque o teu Tevarin Light Fighter não vai ganhar mesmo na votação.
Sei, com certeza não vai ganhar. Com certeza não vai ganhar. O que vai ganhar vai ser aquela nave de refinaria lá.
Mas aí, ô Borgo, é mineradora média, né? Viu, né?
Uhum.
Quatro pessoas. Dobro de capacidade de uma Prospector.
The problem is that this approach lets the algorithms dictate too much of the experience, and if you're not careful, this can lead to the gameplay starting to feel very formulaic. What we really want is the ability for designers to craft more custom content, and to then have a mechanism by which we can trigger it such that it all feels logical, if a bit lucky in the timing.
Os caras estão brigando com o PPT lá.
Our slides seem to be stuck. Yeah, we seem to be having a couple technical problems.
Cara, galera que é dona de merchantman vai balançar o coração agora com essa variante de comércio da Kraken.
E ela vai sair antes da merchante.
Não vai fazer isso.
Vai.
Se fizerem isso, vão tacar fogo na SIG, cara.
Q&A.
Just-
Ela perde 80% da capacidade de carga para botar as lojinhas.
So that you can fully appreciate what we're going to get to in a few minutes. I know it's a little bit odd to spend the first 20 minutes talking about all the problems with the game and how they've made creating one solar system so incredibly difficult, but I do think it will help clarify the value of what we're going to be showing a little bit later. Okay, so we're back in live. So what we do instead of basically allowing the algorithms to entirely control what you see is we defer the activation for a short period of time and bend the probabilities of other things so that we're more likely to get a combination than would otherwise be the case.
Cargueiro Xian para competir contra a freelancer Max e Rubê.
Ah, aquela nave lá.
Maneiro, hein?
Já tinha visto essa também.
Cara, eu sou muito fã dessas naves aí de verticais, né?
We bend the probabilities to increase the likelihood of anything else being able to be attached. In this case,
Bom, cara, eu acho que é essa ou a nave de refinaria.
So why does this matter?
Acho que o carrinho não vai ganhar. Seu Light Fighter esquece. Foi pra vala.
Eles vão fazer só uma delas?
Pelo que a galera tá falando.
Eu gostei da
Mas
música.
assim, não quer dizer que eles vão descartar. Deve ser ordem, prioridade.
Sim, sim.
So while we're fine with the systemic functionality driving things by default, we want to be able to bend things towards more interesting situations without it ever feeling too random every once in a while. The problem with probability volumes then all comes down to their construction. Each one, and there are lots of them, contains a litany of curves and associated data and is set up by hand, which is time consuming and requires constant updating.
Se tu quiser mostrar as imagens aí pro povo, tá tudo ali no chat.
Sim, sim.
Many of the variables that a probability volume details should impact one another. More security in an area should of course impact the number of pirates, but because they're all handled independently, designers have to be very careful when modifying them.
Por enquanto os caras não falaram nada diferente do que eles já falaram no passado, né?
É, sinceramente nesse quadro aí eu não vi nada novo no discurso dele.
A única coisa que eles falam é do sistema dinâmico da economia, onde a demanda de um certo item em algum lugar vai atrair players e outros comerciantes, isso vai atrair também piratas, e isso vai gerar aí a demanda para escoltas, então vai ser um sistema totalmente interligado.
What we really need then is a way to dynamically derive the probability curves based upon what's happening, or rather should be happening when we manage to resolve all these problems I've been pointing out across the solar system. So, I've called out a lot of very serious problems, things that require enormous amounts.
Será que vai aparecer os painéis da economia?
Still fail to deliver the experience we want. What we actually want is a dynamic, logical universe. We want the demand for goods and services to be the result of a legitimate economic need. And we must have sufficient runtime.
Essas palestras sempre, esses painéis sempre foram os mais técnicos.
NPCs must be able to contribute in helping to turn the gears of the economy.
É bem legal, mas realmente não é nada diferente do que ele falou ano passado, só mais completo.
É.
All of this, too, has to be incredibly computationally efficient, which means we need a more focused simulation engine, one that's only concerned with what we need to achieve the desired effect.
Sim, descobriu se é concept ou se é alguma outra coisa, Almeida?
O quê?
Lá aquelas naves?
Não sei se é algo que vai ser uma votação. Eu só tô vendo as imagens, não tem informação nenhuma.
Yep, let's go ahead and flip the screens.
Saiu algumas informações técnicas sobre essa Argo Mode.
There we go.
Parece que é uma nave, mas só que ela vai ter mais de um laser. Vai ter 3 torres para serem operadas individualmente.
Pra quebrar as pedras?
Então tipo assim, você vai poder ou quebrar 3 pedras ao mesmo tempo, né? Cada um foca em uma. Ou quando você tiver alguma coisa muito dura, você vai combinar com seus amigos para minerar uma única, sabe?
Sim.
Como a gente vê acontecendo com as prospectors. Eu acho que você já deve ter visto, né?
Sim.
Quando alguém acha uma pedra muito complicada, chama uma outra nave. Nesse tipo de nave tu não vai precisar disso. É só você pedir para os teus colegas apontarem o laser para aquela pedra. Bem legal.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump on over to everyone's favorite gas giant, Crusader. And in the background there, you can see Port Olisar. Let's go ahead and bring that up.
Isso aí parece
Now, I mentioned that we're connected to
mobilhas melhorado.
Let's go ahead and see what the players are up to.
Seria muito bom, cara, vou te falar. Nossa. Cara,
sem os players
a nova
ativos.
interface.
Vocês estão vendo a apresentação principal agora, estão, né?
Sim.
Caraca.
To be honest, we recorded this earlier mainly because we didn't know how
Legal.
many people
Muito
would be
legal.
playing the game while we were doing this show.
Y'all are here, right?
And I figured it would be totally anticlimactic to say.
Tá de sacanagem, eles estão vendo, né? Todos os players, né?
Que dali acho que é a ferramenta
Sim,
interna deles, acho.
ele falou que honestamente isso daí é gravado porque eles não sabiam quantos jogadores iam estar online na hora da apresentação.
Aham. Cara, incrível.
Pô, isso aí dava uma ótima interface para os próprios jogadores, né?
Cara, eu queria um Star Map assim, pô.
Sim.
Mas vai ser assim,
porcaria.
eles estão anunciando assim.
Ai, cara, tomara.
Vocês viram o cara deu um salto ali?
Sim, eu vi o cara dando salto.
Uau, muito show.
Caraca, cara.
And you can actually see some deaths down on the planet there.
Legal, né? É um shape de 100 servidores.
Ah, ele falou o número?
Sim, 100 servidores dá 5.000 pessoas.
Caralho. Não, 100 servidores... Ah, servidores. Na instância.
Let's go ahead and jump on over to Arial, and we can get a view of those probability volumes that I was talking about earlier.
Acho que eles estão usando essa ferramenta aí para eles meio que calcularem onde é que vai estar o movimento e o consumo dos materiais.
Isso, exatamente isso.
E aí eles vão poder ver toda aquela história que a gente falou sobre demanda, né?
Sim.
There are a number of these. We'll be adding more. In general, what it's doing is, as I mentioned, it's basically representing things in probabilistic state because it's too expensive for us
Caraca,
to fully
cara.
simulate them.
As ferramentas deles são
Essa
muito
ferramenta é
boas.
muito louca. Essa ferramenta é muito louca.
Let's check out the Hicks Research Station that's on Cellin. Yeah, we got to go over to Crusader.
Cara, que massa ver os jogadores andando ali, cara.
Olha isso, ele tá manipulando, né, a demanda.
Sim.
No gráfico.
Open up that shop.
Look, here's.
Yep, there's Outpost Korea, and you can see that there's a lot of death around there. And over on the right at the Hicks Research Station, you can see all the things that it buys and sells and what those prices have been doing over time.
Que legal o valor das demandas ali, os preços que eles estão usando.
I suspect I know what you're thinking at this point. This is all
Muito
very
legal.
cool, but it doesn't really solve any of the fundamental problems that I mentioned earlier.
Com um clique, eles vão poder mexer na economia toda.
And get to that. So, the primary reason for quantum's existence is to enable us to have one unified world where we can, simulate millions of NPCs and feed back into that all of the player actions into one unified whole. So there's really no difference. There are some optimized areas, the probability volumes that exist in between these two realities, but really this is the full-blown simulation. It takes into account all the player actions. So let's go ahead and start by bringing 1,000 quanta to life. So Jake here is cranking the number of quanta up to 1,000, and they're basically going to come streaming in from another system.
Well, into the universe there.
Que essa é esse quantum drive?
These are simulated entities.
Sim.
Caraca, que massa!
Caraca.
Que massa, velho!
And as I mentioned, the real significance
São
of this
NPCs.
is when
Sim.
you're talking about
NPCs vindo do sistema Terra,
working
cara.
out the
Caraca,
Acho que pra gerar demanda, né?
Sim, sim. Cara, que louco.
We don't actually need all of the incredibly high fidelity, super computationally expensive stuff that we would get if we were actually simulating these NPCs the traditional way on the server so that they look exactly like they would when
É NPC fazendo jump point de terra pra Stanton, cara. Pra atender a demanda. Caraca, que louco.
that we couldn't afford to do. It'd be incredibly expensive to try. And in the end, even if we did it, it wouldn't make the end results any more accurate. So,
They also have personality traits too. Like
Yep.
each one has a little bit of something going on.
yeah, there are a number of different traits that we're modeling. We're still working out the exact configuration. One of them is ambition, and that specifies how far a quantum can push themselves relative to others, whether in crime or legitimate.
Cara, eu não vejo a hora de ver o universo assim, né? Vivo, né?
Sim, cara, bata.
Imagina a gente jogando e vendo esse monte de nave indo e vindo, fazendo os afazeres aí da vida delas, sabe?
É.
Caraca, cara.
Bem legal.
Muito legal.
Sabe que a escala ainda é muito pequena, mas quando dá esses boom de jogadores no universo pra testar o Free Fly, é muito legal tu pegar um metrô em ArcCorp ou Hearthstone e tipo ter 5, 6 players lá no metrô indo pro mesmo lugar que tu. Cara, imagina quando tiver o universo todo funcionando.
No criminality equates to a law-abiding quantum. Having a very little means that they might be willing to commit some minor crimes like smuggling or illegal mining. And a lot means that they're open to piracy and murder. They can have possessions, store up money, ownership or property, have a home.
A illegal mining, quer dizer que tem legal mining?
Tem legal mining.
Reason for that is because
Eu não sei como é que vai funcionar a mecânica, mas
Pois é.
se tu não comprar o direito de mineração, e tu ainda pode minerar naquele lugar, entendeu? Aí vai ser ilegal. Aí se
Ah,
acho que-
não, e tem uma outra parada, Borgo, agora que você falou. Eles falaram que vai haver planetas que vão ser reservas naturais, cara.
Sim, e
Você
garanto que
não
eles vão
pa-
botar, e vão botar, garanto, um monte de recurso lá dentro.
so we've now injected a mine onto
Aí os olhos
Daqui a
juntos
pouco
vão
vai estar
tudo
que
lá
nem o
minerar.
Brasil, queimada ilegal, mineração ilegal.
because there's no economic reason for them to do it. There's nothing to do with the ore that they could go and extract. Let's go ahead and open up that card, though. So that card represents the mine on Delamar, and you can see a couple of stats towards the top, quantity and purity. And what these are is basically telling you how much of that material is in that mine, and purity is to some degree a measure of concentration. It effectively details how easy it is to extract it. There are a couple of parameters at the bottom that are temporary. Those will eventually be derived from those top two parameters, but for right now we can override it for some of the testing that we've been doing. So let's go ahead and jump to the next. So now we're going to go ahead and add an aluminum refinery to Crusader. And immediately you will see the quanta start springing to life.
Ah,
And
que
what's
massa.
happening is they've all figured out.
Refinaria de alumínio.
Aí olha os NPCs indo pra lá. Eles estavam parados porque não tinha nada pra fazer.
Cara, que foda.
That refinery
Os NPCs estavam parados porque não tinha nada pra fazer, porque não tinha demanda.
Pile of aluminum. And in order to do that, it needs some raw aluminum ore, and thus it's willing to pay for it. And so the quanta are seizing upon that economic opportunity, heading out to Galera, doing the work, extracting that ore, and taking it back to the refinery. And this will continue until it's full. So let's go ahead and open that card up again, and we can watch the refined aluminum ore gradually build up. You can also see the number of workers. A few of the quanta,
tem cerca de 180.
There's also a number of them that are working in that refining factory. Refineries can't process this material, without labor, and there's a formula that dictates how much labor is required in order to process this stuff. And so they have to hire a sufficient number of workers in order to actually.
Você viu que os NPCs também são controlados, são contratados para trabalhar nas refinarias, nos lugares fixos, né?
And go ahead and keep watching the aluminum inventory. That's finished, so they're now building up their raw ore to basically load up, and after that the entire economy comes to a halt. The one refinery we've added has no more incentive to buy more. Its storage houses are already full, and therefore it's not willing to buy. Since it's not willing to buy, the quanta have nothing to do. So what we're going
Agora ele vai botar alguma outra coisa, tipo uma fábrica de nave, para poder usar o alumínio da fábrica. Oh.
And you can see here that building a power plant, just like refining ore, requires something. It requires 10 workers working for a duration of 60 ticks. And it also, notably, requires 2 units of refined aluminum ore in order to produce 1 power plant.
Que massa, cara.
Isso é muito doente.
We're building up.
Economia muito foda, cara, que eles estão fazendo.
E ele acabou de falar que vai ser muito mais complicado que isso. Só tá fazendo desse jeito que é pra mostrar.
Puta merda.
Agora, isso é bem legal, porque vai mostrar exatamente como vai funcionar uma refinaria. Se a Arca, por exemplo, fizer uma refinaria, a gente vai botar NPC lá e a própria cadeia de NPC vai poder fazer as haulings pra refinaria.
Olha as naves carregando alumínio lá pra fábrica, ó.
Let's go ahead and open up the factory. The factory, just like the refinery, needs workers in order to build these power plants. It also needs refined aluminum. So now you've got multiple things going on. The factory is willing to buy refined aluminum. Someone has to transport that aluminum from Crusader to Hurston. So some of the quanta are basically working, they're basically working as freighters to move that, to move that product from one location to another. Some of them were working at the factory on Hurston. Some of them were working at the refinery on Crusader. Some of them are heading back to Delamar to actually do more mining. So you've got an entire little, economic cycle going here. However, it's going to wind up coming to a dead end here. Let's go ahead and accelerate it again, just like what we saw before, because eventually the factory fills up all of its warehouses. It can't take any more. It therefore has no more, it has no more need for refined aluminum. That will eventually shut down the refinery, which will in turn eventually kill off the miners.
Que massa, a cadeia de coisas funcionando sozinha.
And you can see there that the inventory is still building on the aluminum, which is why there's still some activity.
Acabou a demanda agora por alumínio.
So you see that the inventory is capped out.
Yep, and now they're almost done. The factory is basically got, it's got all it can handle. The refinery has all of its all it can handle. Therefore, the entire loop draws to a close again.
Cara, que ciclo legal, né?
Let's add a shop that sells power plants to ArcCorp.
Um pedaço de alumínio que você pegou lá de um planeta até um componente de uma nave.
Agora eles precisam de... tem estoque nas lojas de ArcCorp para vender.
Tem, ele botou uma loja, aí o componente está indo sendo vendido na loja.
The factory that requires transport of the refined aluminum from Crusader to Hurston, it needs the power plants transported from the factory to it. And so if you notice, if the individual quanta, they'll actually have a little translucent circle around them if they're carrying goods, and so you can easily differentiate whether or not.
Quando os NPCs estão carregando algum produto, eles têm marcador diferentão lá.
They're heading from or back to Delamar, and then from Delamar back to Crusader, they've actually all got ore. And so this loop will actually continue indefinitely. And the reason is because we've cheated something for tonight, and it sounds very similar to what I was basically saying was a bad idea earlier, which is the shop right now is a simple consumer. It's burning off that inventory. The difference here is that the solution to that is very simple in the context of quantum. And the reason is these quanta, the next step of what we'll be working on is they'll actually require ships. Ships require engines. And so all of a sudden there's a real demand for how many power plants do you need? How many ships do you need? It all follows the same, logical equations. So let's go ahead and add a bit more economic complexity.
Acho que elas vão botar mais complexidade ainda no universo.
So thus far we've shown a very basic economic loop.
O cara podia ter começado esse evento assim já desde o início, cara.
Né?
Que foi bem maçante o iníciozinho dele.
Eles têm que tomar cuidado, né? No palco 1 eles têm que colocar coisas que prende, né?
It's this competition, this economic natural selection that ensures that things remain in balance, that a logical equilibrium is reached.
Será que eles vão mostrar concorrência agora entre as lojas, ó? Entre as fábricas?
So, our current architecture basically has players connecting to a game server. And then we've got services behind the scenes that can feed information to these servers and receive information back in return. And so you can see here, we've got shop services and probability volume services and all of this sort of thing. The basic problem with this arrangement is that services don't have any knowledge of what NPCs are doing, or rather what they should be doing. So that shop service that controls the prices, it's got algorithms, but it has no real understanding. It doesn't understand that there are 10,000 NPCs that do or don't need this, or what pirates are doing, or any of that. We don't simulate at that high level anywhere within the game right now. You have servers that basically instantiate the stuff near you, and you have the services that can run these formula, and that's basically it. Now, they can implement these services, these algorithmic price calculations, but supply and demand only comes from players and hard-coded formulae. And it's the same for missions and PVs. The data is completely static and can't evolve. The number of servers, of course, as we've seen here, it varies depending upon how many players are in the game. So let's go ahead and add quantum. Quantum changes this in dramatic fashion. It gives us a place where we can efficiently simulate NPC behavior and then feeds that behavior to the game server so that players can experience it. Further, it allows player actions to be fed back into the simulation so that there's no meaningful difference.
Depois desse vai ser o encerramento, Borgo, ou vai ter mais alguma coisa?
É o evento
Encerramento.
Vai ser aquele gameplay maroto, lindão.
So let's go ahead and get back to the simulation. And what we're going to do now is alter the power plant formula. So let's add a bit of complexity by changing the production formula for power plants to require laranite.
Add some.
We need to change the production formula.
No, we're gonna add laranite first.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. Yeah, we do want to add the new mine.
Só essa coisinha bobinha, né? Que é o ciclo do alumínio na economia. Ele já deixou vivo, né, o sistema.
Sim.
Cara, imagina.
Nós vamos adicionar
completa.
mais de uma refinaria, ó.
Refinaria de laranite.
A galera tá perguntando se sistema de prisão, acho que não vai ter, né?
Já teve a apresentação, foi no Buff 2.
Sim, mas não mostraram, tipo, falaram que iam mostrar pra gente no palco 1, mas não mostraram.
Aconteceu alguma coisa, sabe?
And that's that loop of guys right there. That's what they're taking. Now, one of the important things here is that let's go ahead and look at the Hurston aluminum. Hurston factory aluminum.
E esse sistema certamente ele vai ser passado para aqueles painéis que a gente vê nos planetas, né? Com a economia em tempo real.
Na verdade, esse Quantum, ele é o cérebro da simulação do universo. Ele que vai controlar todos os NPCs. Então, provavelmente, tu vai poder ver rota. E a rota vai ser mostrada baseada nesse sistema. Mas a gente não vai ter acesso a esse sistema.
Ah, não, esse sistema aqui não. Eu falo aqueles gráficos ali, ó, de consumo de
sim, isso vai.
itens e o valor de cada item, estoque e tudo mais. Acho que isso aí vai ser passado diretamente para aqueles painéis que a gente tem, né, nas áreas econômicas em cada planeta. Quanto custa cada alumínio, quanto está custando um componente. Eu acho que isso aí vai gerenciar o valor das coisas.
Inclusive
e o estoque,
a rota também. A rota também.
Galera que é dona de Cutlass Red vai sair em janeiro.
And now let's go ahead and increase the supply of aluminum and see what happens. So we're going to add a few new mines. So let's add an aluminum mine to Selin first.
Que massa ali, meus NPC doido ali, ó.
And let's add one to Aberdeen as well.
Caraca, meu.
And lastly, we're going to do Lyria. And if you remember, we already have an aluminum mine on Delamar. They're telling us we need to hurry up.
You jump ahead, I guess.
You guys want us to hurry up or keep going?
Ele vai mostrar como o preço vai mudar em determinados lugares.
Se der tempo, né? Já é 5 horas.
400 to 1.
Pô, podia ter sido assim desde o início, cara. Pô, corta o papo furado que eles... das mecânicas que a gente já sabia.
Agora o cara tá com pouco tempo pra melhor parte.
Pois é.
Porra, cara, na moral.
Ele, no início da apresentação dele, ele falou um monte de coisas que a gente já sabia, cara.
We just added all of this new aluminum. So let's head back to that Hurston factory and see what aluminum prices are doing there. What's that factory having to pay for aluminum with all this new supply, these new mines, these new refineries? And there you see that the price is starting to fall off.
Olha que massa, cara, o preço tá baixando.
Caiu.
Sim, tem bastante recurso, né?
Speed it up a little bit. Let's see what
Bastante oferta.
Bastante oferta.
And if you see, it continues to plummet. So those prices are pretty much falling off a cliff now. From all that extra supply that's been brought on without us having to go back and rebalance anything. So let's go ahead and head on over to Selin. And you can see that Selin is in very close proximity to Crusader. So you've got a refinery and aluminum mining, yet there's very little activity. And the reason is because the aluminum at that mine is very difficult to extract. So let's go ahead and adjust the mining time on Selin from 180 to 120. And what this again reflects is how difficult it is to extract from that particular location. And so you see there now you see a few guys are actually willing to put in the amount of work necessary to extract it. Not all of them, it's still a lot of effort. And this comes back to every one of these guys having their own individual set of traits. So some of them were willing to endure, more risk, more, more effort, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead now and increase the laranite consumption.
Vai ser todo jogo de planejamento, né?
Sim, com certeza.
Let's just go with normal pace.
Cara, pra quem gosta de economia, nossa.
Olha o universo.
Eu nunca vi nada assim num jogo, cara. Pelo menos não num MMO.
We're going to do both. The global refining time, we want to take to 60 to 120. And Wallace extraction time goes from 60 to 180.
That's right.
60 to 120. There.
Come in, random ship. Hi, welcome to the neighborhood.
So what we've just done is basically make it more time consuming, more difficult to refine it, and we've basically made it more difficult to pull it out of the ground. So let's go ahead and apply a macro also to reduce the default purity of laranite from 50 to 16%, which means that refineries are going to need more ore to produce the same amount of refined product. Reactive. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the laranite prices on the Hurston factory.
Cara, que demais o sistema deles.
So we just did 3 different things to make it considerably, more expensive for laranite to be utilized. And
Nossa, os preços subindo de novo, ó.
you can see that laranite
Eles
prices
deixaram as minas mais difíceis de retirar os recursos, ó.
It looks like they're starting to skyrocket.
Sim.
This could be a complete economic
Legal.
disaster. If you notice, they're just going up, up, up. So what we're going to do now to bring that back into control is let's go adjust the power plant formula to compensate a bit.
Tô vendo uma linha de tendência de alta ali e tal.
Puta que
Deixa eu traçar o Fibonacci aqui, peraí.
Bora pro day trade.
Deixa eu traçar o Fibonacci aqui, peraí.
Já não é live de Star Citizen, gente. Bora pro day trade.
Galera, bem-vindos ao curso de Day 3 do Paiva do Almeida pra treinar alumínio e liranite.
Ó, tô recomendando comprar ações de Arquicorp. Isso aí é claramente uma perna de alta. Ai, caramba.
Saíram outros dados do CAGED da Arquicorp, gerou mais emprego.
A galera perguntou se ia acontecer em tempo real.
Essa linha de suporte, essa resistência.
Não, em tempo real não é, eles aceleraram o processo.
É uma simulação acontecendo agora,
Sim,
mas ela tá
sim.
acelerada, né?
Sim, eu perguntar se isso aí acontece, tá acontecendo em tempo real, mas não é não em tempo real.
It'll keep falling.
Acelerado.
Okay. So now let's go ahead and add some additional factories. Delamar looks pretty dead. There isn't a lot of
A
economic
Adra falou pra gente
activity
fazer marketing multinível.
happening over there. So let's add a bit of life
A
by adding
Bettina
a
do
power plant
Estados
factory.
Unidos. Pessoal, meu nome é Paiva, eu tenho 18 anos e com 100 alumínios eu fiz $1 milhão.
And, yeah, let's add a personnel core factory for power
Descubra
plants as well
como
to create a little bit of
nesse
competition.
cursinho online.
And then let's head on over to Hurston factory, and let's check out.
Caramba, olha só, meu.
You notice that their workers
Cara,
are
tem que
falling off a
ter
cliff.
tem que ter
What is
mercado
happening?
financeiro
Well,
dentro do
Cara,
Estados
na
Unidos.
moral,
Factory,
eu tô
they're
imaginando
getting
tanta
offered better
besteira,
wages for
mano.
another place.
Aqueles anúncios escrotos do tipo, como eu comprei uma 890 com uma usando uma Aurora em 3
And what are the
semanas.
wages
Sabe?
on
Ai, caraca, cara.
Let's see what the wages that they were offering. So they were up at 0.25.
Yeah, Delamar's offering like almost 3 times the wages of.
Yep. So there you see the differential, which is that factory is more desperate for workers, and so you see. Let's go. Actually, go. Let's look at the. Yep.
Paiva,
Basically,
Ah.
the workers skyrocketed.
vamos
on
largar a
Delamar,
arca,
plummeted on
abrir uma
Hurston.
corretora.
Dentro do Estados Unidos, hein?
And the
Vou abrir uma corretora, cara.
stabilize, they find a point of equilibrium, which is
Dentro do Star Citizen.
Dentro do Star Citizen, cara.
So let's go ahead now and
É isso aí, galera.
make some major changes. We're going to do this with a macro.
Assinem
You can
nossos
see where
relatórios,
we-
$10.
down the slide.
There's like a bunch.
Eles botaram mais NPC acho que pra dentro do sistema.
Cara,
Sim.
incrível isso.
2.000. Eles simularam 2.000 agora.
There we go. So we've added lots of aluminum, titanium, and agresium. In the entries that you see on the screen marked system, all of the moons now have deposits.
Já estão 10 minutos atrasados, cara. Eu quero ver
We've added a
gameplay.
bit more laranite, but it's still pretty rare. We've also added a lot of new refineries. We've added
Calma,
cooler and
calma, que a gente tem
quantum-derived
que ser
recipes
pioneiro.
to most factories.
Mercado financeiro
Require
de
aluminum, laranite, titanium, and degreasium. The demand for coolers and quantum drives has been introduced, and we've also increased the demand for power plants. And lastly, we've increased, you can see there at the bottom of the screen, the number of quanta from 1,000 to 2,000 so that we've got enough workers to keep the economy humming. Now, previously, we've seen pretty obvious cause and effect. At this point, though, the economy is starting to get pretty complicated. And we can look at a few graphs to just see what's going on with some of the prices to see this. And this is one of the most interesting things about a really complicated economy, which is these changes in quantities and prices, the purposeful movement of quanta, this dynamism. These are all opportunities that you're going to be able to exploit within the game, and they're in constant logical motion.
A máquina dos caras está começando a pesar lá, ó.
O preço da Laranite quebrou.
Be a shame if somebody came.
Laranite tá barata, compra, galera.
Bring up the slide.
Oh, okay.
You gotta bring the slide.
Vamos botar pirata pra dentro? Botaram.
All right, so now we've introduced some pirates. Let's go ahead, and so you can see that there are 4 pirate kraken. There's the Nova Riders, Low Riders, 9
Cinco já morreram.
Pirates have to return to one of their bases in order to refuel, rearm.
Já morreram metade agora,
Let's go
outro
ahead.
tem
If you
50
notice,
só.
they head to the areas of highest value. If
Os
you
piratas
go
estão
ahead
indo
and zoom in
embora,
there,
estão fugindo.
and you can see that those are missions being
Olha lá, estou
created
indo pra
by the
Piro.
NPCs that are different than players would. In other words, you see a lot
Já
of
fizeram a
deaths
farra,
on
agora
the
estão
route
indo
that's got
embora,
a
é
lot of
isso?
value. And go ahead and hover over some of those contracts.
Nossa.
These are contracts that are being thrown out
Esses
by the
pontos aí é
NPCs on
morte?
that route. What's happening is
Não, é os
it's-
piratas,
the
acho.
NPCs are basically
Não, eu acho
que
just
isso é
morte,
the
cara,
freighter
já
foram
being
embora.
picked on by the pirates, the ship is being
Caraca.
destroyed, and now that NPC has ejected and needs transport back to civilization. And so they're requesting that. And these are missions that would be fed back into the game that you'd see. And you'd
Caramba.
wind up
Olha, descreve os
accepting.
contratos de transporte, ó.
Sim, gera uma outra demanda.
Ah,
Muito
vai
legal.
vir demanda agora de escolta, né?
Let's go
É,
ahead and take a
muito
look
legal.
at Hurston.
Cara,
the
que
cooler
foda.
quantum drives.
Legal.
Where they're operating out of, you guys.
Ali, ó. Low Riders, ó. Caraca, velho.
Caraca, como assim, velho? Dá pra ver o modelo da
Dá pra
nave.
ver o modelo da nave.
Drives.
Yeah.
So, since we've now got a lot of pirate activity on that route, we want to see what's happening to the cost of
Low
the
Riders,
Tá,
né? Viva
tá
GTA.
equipado.
Tá.
Viva GTA San Andreas.
Que daí meio que virou tipo um ponto de respawn, os caras vão lá, roubam e voltam pra Kraken, ó.
É a base.
Caraca,
É a base, ó.
mano.
Space Station. tá vendo?
Aham.
É a base
Ela
dele.
virou uma FOB, cara.
It's actually normal. Piracy is
Caraca.
really terrible for economics, you guys. So.
Yeah.
Pô, se vocês querem aumentar o preço das coisas, ó, é só fazer uma pirataria ali numa certa rota.
Like a really reasonable thing. Like
Yeah,
1,000.
that's pegged. It's the scale. So basically, they were down around 1,000,
Formação
2,000,
privilegiada é
and now
crime,
they just
cara.
absolutely skyrocketed in price because so many of the freighters moving, whether it's supplies or moving, the finished product from one location to another, are now being intercepted. And these quanta, as I mentioned
Já
earlier,
abra a
like,
conta
they
na arca,
have
viu?
various traits.
Corretora de
and some
valores
of them are very
interestelar.
risk averse, and they won't go down
Bom,
routes where there's a
corretora é
significant chance of
confirmada,
death.
cara.
And so to
abrindo
counteract some
amanhã.
of this danger, let's go ahead and bring in someone to fight the pirates. So here comes some security.
Nossa, a segurança
And
vindo,
what
ó.
you'll notice is that
Sim, e
security
tem
is
outras
drawn
bases
to
de
areas
pirata, ó.
of
Tem
conflict,
Nine Tails,
where
tem
there's a
Low
lot of deaths and
Riders.
such. So
Eles
they're gonna
formaram
wind
tipo
up
clãs,
gravitating
entendeu?
towards those areas.
Dusters,
Facções.
olha
There's a
lá.
lot of piracy.
É.
Será que eles
Nova-
têm território? Ficam longe um dos outros?
Provável sim, porque eles
Cara,
estão
isso vai ser
longe, ó.
muito
Lá.
legal, cara.
Ó, a segurança chegando, ó.
Provável que sim.
And if you notice, by the way, the police will wind up patrolling an area, so they're in constant motion. Whereas the pirates basically
Cara, ele tá
are
vezes
enabling,
200, é isso?
quantum interdiction
Tava,
fields. That's
agora
why
tá
they're
vezes
basically
20.
picking a route on, they're picking a particular location on the route between, between two locations, and they're basically, lying in wait.
Nossa, aí
And
começou a
the
porrada.
security, which doesn't know exactly where they are, is scanning the area looking for them. And so what you notice here is that the pirate situation is starting to look a lot better now that security's shown up. And you would see this reflected over in the prices. And so what you have here is a perpetual game of cat and mouse, to where the pirates look for the areas where they can reap the largest rewards with the least amount of risk, and security is then drawn to them. And as soon as you get enough pushback from the system in terms of security, then the pirates look for more opportunistic pastures. And again, this is very much like what you would expect to see in any logical functioning system.
Ah, que massa, cara. Se a segurança dificultar muito a vida dos piratas, eles vão procurar outro lugar.
So, let's go ahead and turn on the grid. And what you're looking at here is one of the big problems I referred to earlier is how we wind up getting samplings of this, of how we generate probability volumes. And so what this is showing you is we can look at one of these high conflict areas, and it's basically tabulating exactly what's in that area. So you can see that there are 10 total quanta, 1 freighter, 11 pirates, 5 security. It also shows you the total value being transported. You know exactly what's going down that route. Let's take a look at a few other locations. Here you see the security and pirates are fairly even. 6 pirates, 7 security. A decent amount of value, 6 freighters. So there's actually an almost equivalent number of freighters, pirates, and security. This is the information that quantum, and it's a small piece of the whole, this is what it would wind up feeding periodically to the probability volume services. So that designers no longer need to go in and say, oh, well, we're going to hard code a certain amount of security, a certain amount of freighters, and it can never change. We ship it, that's all it's ever going to be. In this case, the simulation is running, it's constantly ebbing and flowing.
Cara, muito bom isso aí.
Você não tem manutenção, porque o sistema se autorregula. É vivo, né? Você não tem manutenção, você não tem que botar alguém para ficar olhando ou cuidando.
Sim, e o recurso é finito. Então, tipo, ele sempre tem que realocar de um lugar para o outro. É uma coisa.
Caraca, cara.
Nunca vai ter nada perfeito.
Isso tem uma ferramenta bem poderosa para ir ajustando isso, né?
E é por isso que Star Citizen demora.
É a base tecnológica, né? É o que a gente sempre falou. Essas ferramentas aí vão estar presentes no resto do universo, que é justamente para balancear tudo, né?
Mano, eu fico imaginando a trabalheira que deve ter dado para programar um negócio desse. Meu Deus.
Quantum solves all of these issues. It also provides us with a lot more context, which means that concepts not previously understood, like how much risk there is in taking an item from point A to point B, can now be easily calculated. Information like this is vitally important to the price discovery machinery, and as I spoke about earlier, in a properly functioning economy, such things can and will generate a lot of ripples. We also get the information necessary to properly customize mission content, meaning we can deliver a lot more environmental and mission diversity without having to do any more work. I've covered a few of the large areas that quantum will impact, but the effects will be felt far wider. How many NPCs you see at a landing zone, for example, and what they're doing can now change over time. Manufacturing towns
que massa, cara. A quantidade de NPC no lugar que a gente vê pode mudar durante o tempo.
NPCs can grow and evolve separately from their interactions with players.
Imagina, tipo, uma época tá a Arquicorp cheia de NPC e tipo numa outra época tá quase vazia.
Maneiro, cara.
Criminal NPCs with a price on their head can move around the universe just like a player, making trying to catch them that much more fun. We've got a lot more work to do before Quantum is ready for integration with the rest of the game, but it's one of the last big steps in setting us up for a completely dynamic and systemic universe. Thanks for listening.
Ah, meu, que... Eu falei, cara, os eventos desse cara são sempre legais, mas eu acho que no início ele começou meio ruim porque ele falou várias coisas que a gente já conhecia, né?